the only one responsible for yourself. You're the only one who can manage your study habits. And even other people may try to intimidate, but it's none of your business what other people think of you, and it's none of your business what, and it's none of your business, because all you can do is work towards being the best you can.
Good morning. So it's a little bit past 9, it's about 9:01 or so, and we're starting our Cafecito time today with Olivia Ash. So I'll go ahead and read a little bit about who she is, and she'll be joining us here soon. Olivia Ash, JD/MS, brings 15 years of teaching and management experience to compliance education. After receiving her BS in exercise science from the University of Evansville and MS in physical education from Indiana University, Olivia spent decades advising employees on wellness program management. In recent years, Olivia shifted her professional focus to law, in educating clients about ERISA compliance. She founded Liv Balanced, LLC, a site dedicated to sharing content about living life balanced. Liv paints abstract art and enjoys road cycling. So she'll be joining us here very soon, and we'll be talking about balancing health, law school, career, and I'm really excited to talk about a little bit more on that subject. So let's see if she logs on here, and we'll start talking with her a little bit more. Connecting. Yay!
Okay, sorry everybody. Sorry about that.
No problem. I'm glad that you were able to log in.
Oh, you should have seen me. This is what happens when someone who's not as savvy with social media is learning it happens. So, okay, redo everybody. Hopefully you got some coffee or a drink or something.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. How about you? Other than having like a hot flash trying to be like, what happened? I was going everywhere and I didn't realize I had to go to my personal account to log on. And
yeah. No problem. And if anyone needs to find your account, we'll tag you on there. So I think they'll
know. Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, now we're okay.
All right, so I go ahead and introduce you, and we'll edit those and post it on the YouTube channel. But I'm really excited for you to join us today. I know that with everything going on with COVID-19, a lot of people are trying to find balance in their lives, and that's really hard, especially in a time with uncertainty. So I'll before we jump in, I'll let you kind of introduce a little bit yourself. Where are you calling from today, so our viewers know?
So I'm calling from my dining room in Indianapolis, Indiana is where I am based. And so this is where I do a lot of the filming for my work and my job, because it has great lighting and, lots of color in it, and it makes me feel pretty happy. So
yeah, I love seeing your Instagram photos. They're always so colorful.
Thank you.
So, and I know that you said that you studied at the University of Evansville, correct? And you studied exercise science, so which I thought was interesting because I met you. We went to the same law school, and you graduated a year after me, correct?
Yeah, 2019, May of 2019. Yeah.
So I wanted to just kind of ask, how did you go from exercise science, because I see how active you are,
right?
To law, like how did you jump from that? Maybe
I know it's quite tangential. Yeah, most definitely it's quite tangential, and I really just followed what the opportunities were bringing me in life. And so I have always been an outdoorsy girl, nature girl. I move, I love to play sports, I love to be outside, but I'm also very girly girl. And so I have this sort of I have a lot of interests. So I went to Evansville, and I ended up, after changing my major 4 times, in exercise science, because it allowed me to be active, and I enjoy science. And then, so I had that degree. I like everything, you get done with your bachelor's degree and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to get a job. And so I was a personal trainer, and then I had to have some surgeries that caused me to have to quit my job. And I ended up deciding I should go to grad school and get my teaching license. And then fast forward 10 years later, I am working for a wellness company, but I have gained this business experience, and I was moved into a business development. learning how to sell our product, how to contract for our product. And I really was just like, if I'm going to be doing this work on contracts, then maybe I should get the education so that I can have a better opportunities in the future, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And so then I just applied took the LSAT, and I'm in law school. And I had absolutely no plans ever to go to law school before that. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's very different. You know?
It was sort of like taking a path through a woods, and you're like, okay, do I go this way or do I go this way? Or then maybe there's a tree across the path and I have to turn around and do something different. And I have tried to do that in my life and just sort of read the leaves kind of thing, see what's going on, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think we were kind of mentioning, and I think a lot of people may have that experience, because I mean, I expected to go to med school, you know, like how did I end up in law school type of thing. I think we have a lot of people who end up starting one thing, they think that's what they want, and then end up somehow in law school. So, and I know we do have some students who, you know, had a career like you did, like before that, any of that. And especially when I was at IU McKinney, we saw a lot of diverse paths from life, how they ended up in law school. And I had a question yesterday with somebody asking, is going to law school at 20, I think it was like 23 or 24 too old? And I was just like, no, like no. Our classmates, like they were of all ages. I had a classmate who was 60, and it's mind-blowing how you can use the law in so many ways, and it impacts every single day of your life. So
I would agree. And I have always worked 2 or 3 jobs since I can remember. I grew up in a large family, and I helped my father. We did construction. And then I went, I worked through undergrad. I worked 2 jobs in grad school. And even when I was working full time in a grown-up job, I still did other things to keep my interest. So I kept my teaching license active, and I taught, and I'm currently faculty at Indiana University, and I teach undergrads. But, when I was also personal training, because I still loved what I went to school for, which is to help people find ways to become healthy so that they can enjoy life when they find their own health. Yeah. And so one of my training clients was a lawyer, and he's just like, well, why don't you just go to law school? He's like, why would you become like a law clerk, or why would you just get your legal assistant kind of, he's like, just go to law school. So I was 35 when I started law school. I'm approaching my 40th birthday in a few months.
You don't like him. It's amazing.
Thank you.
I told you that before.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. But it was not something, at first it was a little daunting, but then I had to sort of take a step back and use some perspective and be like, how can you use your experiences to help other people, but also to help yourself and grow and learn from those who are younger than you, older than you? And what can you bring from your experiences in your career that maybe 22, 23-year-olds don't have when they're in law school, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think one of the best recommendations when I was applying for law school was, because I only took one semester and 1 summer off before starting law school. And I was afraid, like, oh, what if I don't jump right in. And I think one of the best things that someone told me was like, law schools will want to see that you are mature enough, that you've made the decision to go to law school because that's what you want, not just because just the next step that you want, and that they want to see your work experience too. So I thought that kind of put me at ease, and just going into law school and seeing the diversity of, careers before even attending law school was just very, very true and very, very good to see.
It can enrich your education if you allow it to. Yeah. And that's something that I am very happy about having the evening program, is because I was able to learn from so many other people. And for me, the skill sets that I learned in law school only refined my business knowledge and my teaching knowledge. And I feel that they've made me a better educator and a better business individual. And then I am doing what I would hope to do, which is be in a lot of different things all the time, because I have this craving to learn and to know. And so if you allow yourself to learn while you're in there from other people, not just learn the law, I think that is part of the value of the education.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as we're talking, we'll let some people organically ask some questions, what they, anything they will have for you. But I did
Bring
write
it
some questions for you. And I thank you so much for answering them. It really helped kind
on.
of see where you are. And since we're talking about law school, what are some challenges you faced in law school while keeping a balanced mind and body? I think we might have several of those students who are they're either pre-law or law, and then I think the majority of our audience are going to be law graduates and young attorneys. So, what can you kind of talk about? How do you balance that?
So it's interesting because the first year and a half of law school, is tough in and of itself. And then, you have 4 years instead of 3 when you're working full time and you have clients yelling at you. Then you drive down to the school and then you have 3 or 4 hours of class.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, and most of the time you're like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And I think it's important to maybe inventory why you're doing it, but also to keep going. So I did have several challenges myself, and I'll talk about a couple of those, but then how you can sort of balance those things, at least from a fitness and health perspective and the education that I have and what I teach to students. So when I started, I was in a very unhealthy spot. I had adrenal failure, which means those are the organs that sit on top of your kidneys and are responsible for metabolism and energy. Mm-hmm. And mine were in dire shape. And so I was losing my hair. I was under an extreme stress. I had been on some medication. And so I just sort of stopped all of that, stopped the medication, saw the doctor, started school, and was able to begin. I was not feeling well. I was at my heaviest ever. And it was little by little. And they say in fitness and wellness, you hear these quick diets, but then you hear people say, what really happens in the research is little by little if you just keep practicing healthy behaviors, because the learning is in the day-to-day. So I was dealing with adrenal failure. I had a breast cancer scare when they found a nodule and I had to have a biopsy, and that was scary. Coming to class at night.
Yeah.
Just the general stresses of working. And I was a director at my company at the time. So I was responsible for all the contracts for our clients and our vendors. Mm-hmm. So there were a couple times when I had made a mistake and I had put like the wrong, my definition was incorrect, and it was like $1 million account, and I thought we would lose it because I hadn't appropriately put it in there.
Yeah.
That can cause stress, and then you have to go study. So, it's funny because at the school, I had a few colleagues who'd be like, Olivia, you always have snacks and you always have apples and bananas and nuts. And I'm like, yes. And so what I would do is during those 4-hour breaks at school, if you're an evening student, and you might have seen me, I would be walking around. I'd be going up and down the stairs. I would be giving myself fuel that I knew would help me because I couldn't afford to feel any worse. Yeah. And I think when you realize and you have that moment when you want to change, you can do it. And it's really learning what your body needs and giving your body what it needs to work, because it's an organism and it is supposed to function as such. And so that really helped, because throughout the rest of law school, I divorced after 15 years with my ex. And I went through a divorce after my second year of law school. So that meant moving out of my home and finding a new one. And then my brother had an overdose. And so I look back and I think about these stressors that are major events.
Yeah.
And for me, I have always gone back to move your body, because it resets your mind, at least because you have to get out of that thinking pattern. You have to move, you have to breathe, and you have to make healthier choices. And so when the stress is high, it's really simple. Find what your body needs. Take a breath, quite literally. It stops that hormone cascade of stress response. Care for your brain, because your brain needs a lot of really good fats and good snacks while you're studying and doing everything else. And then engage in some joyful activities. And so that would either be time with my friends at school, or just painting or doing something outside.
Yeah.
So when I look back at the stressors that I had during law school, I'm like, my gosh,
Yeah.
how did I get through it?
Yeah, and just life throw these curveballs at you. And I mean, I thought I'm gonna go to law school, things are gonna go smoothly. I finally got where I need to be because I think I decided to go to law school my second my I think my second or like literally like 3 semesters before I graduated college. And that was the ultimate goal. And I worked my butt off, to get into the law school I wanted and all that, and fighting like legal status things. And when you're in there, you're like, oh, I've met people who are similar to me. They're so quirky. They love office
Yeah.
supplies. They love organization. Like, and then you realize how much competition there is too. You're not that unique. And then you start adding the stressors that life will throw at you. And we were
Yes.
talking about curveballs in our last conversation too, that I had to roll with the punches too. Like it's just, I think all of us will assume that it's going to law school will just be studying, but in the long run, you might have some things that you did not expect, family
Oh,
losses,
yeah.
whatnot. Yeah.
Family losses. It comes out of nowhere. And what I had to realize, and tend to be a perfectionist. It's just part of my nature.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot for those of us who are in law school. And there's an element of control and perfectionism. It makes us feel safe, except that we really can't control much of anything except our thoughts and our own actions. And you had mentioned competition. Now, I can say in my experience, the evening program, I did not feel that near as much as the day students. And
Yeah.
that could be a function
Yes.
of, it's a function of many things. But when it comes down to it, you're the only one responsible for yourself. You're the only one who can manage your study habits. And even other people may try to intimidate, but it's none of your business what other people think of you, and it's none of your business what, and it's none of your business, because all you can do is work towards being the best you can. And I would have to say I'm grateful. That is one of the big things, having had work experience and dealing with people and businesses and losing money, and one of my jobs, like, I've been yelled at by clients. I have been called names by clients.
Yeah.
I've had to hire and fire employees. So I brought those experiences into law school. So for me, it wasn't the stress as much of competition like what you had mentioned. It
Hmm.
was it was just getting through, because I am older than the average law student, and I'm tired. I was tired. And I'd
Yeah.
already gone to grad school, and I was like, what am I doing spending this money? And it was just sort of the day to day to day.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that you have to know yourself in order to heal yourself. And those conversations and knowing yourself can be very difficult.
Yeah.
They can be very difficult when you look at yourself sometimes. And that's kind of what this quarantine is doing for many of us. Like, oh my gosh. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, oh.
Yeah, especially knowing what are your discipline and work habits, because you want to grow your business, you want to grow whatever that you're doing, but at the same time you have all these other responsibilities now that you're home too, and how do you keep distractions? Now you're really that disciplined that you thought you were, I think those are the things I'm discovering in this quarantine for myself, and also finding the motivation, because sometimes there are days I just don't want to do anything,
Mhm.
and it's hard because
Yeah.
I'm a social person, so I'm happy that I'm doing these lives with you,
Yeah.
and it kind of motivates me at the beginning of the day,
Yeah.
and with all the other ladies I'll be meeting with. But it's hard to not to when I wasn't doing them, it was hard to get up and feel that motivation because I didn't have social, like, I didn't have the connections that I needed as a social person.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that we're doing this today and that we're learning from you too. So, and the evening program that you mentioned is true. I was also in the evening program when I was studying, except for my last semester, I switched to kind of a hybrid between daytime and evening
Mhm.
program.
Yep.
The evening program wasn't as competitive. People were so supportive of each other. We even had study groups where whichever friendships that you made, they will invite you to a study group, and we will take the time to build outlines together to support each other. Obviously, not all of us are gonna get A's because
Right.
of the grade curve and try to make that very competitive, but it was very nice to know that everybody understood that we all had our struggles, that we all had our separate lives, and just to kind of be kind to one another. And that was just very helpful.
Yeah, it was absolutely helpful, and I think that's one of the strong points from the education that the school IU McKinney where we attended.
Yeah.
And and I saw someone ask, how do you keep consistent with routines, and kind of what routines do you have throughout the day? So one of the things that I have, and I'm working on this with my own business now that I started it recently, is you have got to make time for yourself and stick to it, which means you got to do something you enjoy. And you'll see people, I want to try this diet, I'm going to try this diet, I should try this. It's really good to try new things. But if you are trying to sort of have like an anchor to which to hook yourself while you're getting through something difficult, you've got to choose things that you enjoy, and you have got to schedule for yourself as just as you are as important as a client or that school appointment or that class. You yourself, because nobody down the line can get anything good unless you are ready and there and willing to do it, and you've got to take care of yourself first. And that's probably one of the biggest lessons I learned, especially after going through the divorce and then the second 2 years of law school, because suddenly rocking my world, 15 years with my ex-husband, it was huge to suddenly go from that to being by myself. But my social connections at school really helped me, and I was able to begin to really learn what I needed and wanted. And so you have to make time for yourself, and you have to get to know yourself. So those routines, and whatever way you do that, and I got to be straight up about this. Like I have been like, oh, you should really take really nice notes. Why can't you just take notes in nice, easy order? Yeah. In my entire existence, I have never been able to do that. I take notes in random colors in different ways, and I draw things. I use Post-it notes. I use a whiteboard. So I have to accept that that's how my brain thinks, and then put a routine around it. But start with one or two things. I mean, give yourself a little grace in that sense.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm so glad that you're actually pointing out specific ways that had worked for you, because I would hate, even now that we graduated and we, get opportunity to mentor other people, and they ask, so how did you study for law school? Or how did you study at all? Like, what does an outline mean? And I would hear the same words that I hated myself listening. Do what works best for you. I didn't even know what that meant. Like, I didn't know myself that well in law school. I didn't know how I learned. I didn't realize how different my learning style will be from the next person next to me. And learning about yourself, it comes through law school. Like, how are you going to do it? There's some tests that will help you figure out your personality. I took several of those to kind of help me figure out what was my first learning style. And I didn't understand much of it at first until I started doing it. And the same thing that you're saying, I'm a visual learner, and I would be I remember torts class was the most creative class. I had a professor who was very unique, and I would just doodle the exact same scenario of my cases. Because, for example, like a tort law, I remember drawing a horse. Like the ugliest little horse, but it reminded me of that case. I just would use different things that were prompt those reminders of the black letter law and what I needed to know. So that was just very helpful in how you're saying it. How do you remember things?
Yeah. Well, you do. You have to use what works for you, and especially when you get ready to study for the bar, because you're by yourself studying for the bar most of the time, because everybody just sort of goes, and you have to go take the test. You have to do it. No one is going to do it for you. No one is going to be there telling you how you should do it, so you really have to figure out what works for you and not be embarrassed about it, not judge yourself, not criticize yourself. And I'm really good at that criticism of myself. It's that perfectionist tendency. But, I'm a mover. I'm a mover by nature. So when I studied, I paced and I moved because I could remember things better when I'm moving. I can't sit. And I'm a writer. So find what works for you, because when it comes down to the nitty gritty time, it's just you taking that test. Yeah,
definitely. Well, I think that really covers what when it comes to understanding what, especially with now your routine and what you need to do to study as well. Which is my next question. How do you study from home? Because I have had like take home exams. I think, most of us will have at some point a take home exam and what that looks like. But a lot of our students now, they're studying at home and they're taking their exams possibly at home because our campuses are closed. So how do you find that balance of studying? Because I know that it would have been hard for me to study. At one point I had two other roommates. It was just really hard to be in that same space, even though we had our own rooms, but it just not having that conducting type of a space for myself where I could feel comfortable, or like having an erase board, that would have been great to have, but I didn't have that in my room.
Right.
So at some point I did live by myself, and that made it easier to study, but even then it's a lot of distractions. So how is it that a person could study from home? I know that we talked about routines and that kind of played off a little bit. So maybe we can kind of discuss like what worked for you in the sense of holding yourself responsible for following those things. I know that we have this pressures of finances, that you are spending money to do this, but what else can motivate you during this time, especially during this very difficult time, seeing the news and all that?
It is. So, I had posted a video on my website, just in general work from home tips for business professionals, but many of the things can be applicable for those studying and students. A schedule is very important. A schedule is very important because and instead of thinking of it as something that you have to do and you have to do perfectly, it's sort of, you are creating the discipline that's necessary so that you can rest in it and know that right now you can study this, but the next hour you've dedicated to doing something that you absolutely love to do. Or maybe you're feeling like you're stressed out with your roommates, so you need to go take a walk, and maybe you listen to a lecture over again. It is going to require you to maybe go outside of yourself a little bit and be creative in how you do it, but I think that schedule is very important. Getting enough sleep, the sleep is underrated. And I say that the older that I'm getting, I realize that all I ever want to do is just sleep. And then I'm like, happy as a lark in the morning. Take care of your brain, because your brain is literally in overload studying, especially with law. And that means having good nutrition. So that's lots of water. Coffee is okay, but stay away from the extra sugars, stay away from the extra quick fats. But, if it's from the earth, generally it's good for you. And the good fats and nuts and olive oils and salads and avocados and things like that. Those are going to help you have the fuel to do what you need to do. So you got to know yourself. So maybe take an inventory. When I was working for a big company, we did the strengths assessment finder. You may have heard it. It's one of the most reliable and I think valid things to find out what you're good at. And instead of focusing what you could do better, you find out what you're good at, and then you really put your time in that. And I've taken that test 4 times in like 12 years, and I have the same consistent top 3 things that I'm really good at. So that's what I try to focus on. And I try to build my schedule around those things, because my natural tendency is to learn random things. My natural tendency is to be super responsible, meaning that if I say I'm going to do something for someone, I have a mental commitment. So if I need to study, I'm going to have to pare that down so I can focus on myself and make the commitment to myself first. So you got to know yourself. Find out the things that are most important to you. Inventory your strengths, but also your areas of weakness on study, and then literally make a plan. And that plan may look as detailed as if you like lines and colors, or for me, it's like a Post-it note, and it's got 5 things, and I see it on my mirror, and that's enough for me. Yeah. So what you've done is you have acknowledged that you have emotions and you're feeling something. So you've mentally checked in. You have inventoried. You have made a plan, and you're still working towards your goal without being critical towards yourself. And you've got to set, like, I have a designated study space. That's really important if you're at home, because that's study. It's like you hear the research. when you go to bed, don't have a TV in your bedroom, ideally. Go to bed to sleep. Don't study in your bed. And begin to make these routines. And as you find successes, it will build and you will continue. When we find little successes and they start to build, it makes us want to do it more and then tweak it a little bit more. But it really starts with finding out who you are. And that can always be a tough thing. And that's just sitting down with you and asking yourself some questions about what you want and how you want to get it, and being honest about how you work and how you don't work.
Yeah. And I know that you've kind of helped others develop, especially other companies, how to develop wellness programs, which I thought was really interesting. And that you have worked in compliance. So kind of switching gears towards now, like kind of like the what is a compliance attorney for those who don't know, because I know we have a lot of pre-law students watching. And what is something that you were doing? I know you mentioned ERISA. Some people may not know what that is, and if you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So a compliance attorney is a pretty broad term for an individual who typically works for a business. So whether it's a private business or a public business, and they are not necessarily practicing in the sense that they are filing motions, going to the court, making a representation for their company, as much as they are a resource to ensure that their company is remaining compliant with any federal or state regulations that apply to their business. And so ERISA is the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. It is a beast, and it is basically you've got employee retirement plans. So let's think of I'm employed by a company, and my company offers me health insurance. That's a benefit plan. And so the government has regulations on employers to make sure that they fairly offer me my benefit plan and they don't discriminate. And so there's a bunch of regulations intertwined with that. And my job is to help employers understand what they need to do to make sure they're not discriminating against individuals based upon any number of things, genetic information, or the Disabilities Act, or making sure that they notify employees about their medical plan benefits, especially with all of this new regulation. So I am in a compliance attorney often does a lot of education, and it can be incredibly detailed work. I enjoy it because I spent so many years teaching in wellness and working in wellness programming and educating people about wellness programs. And I'm a teacher by training. I have a teaching license, and I've taught it at a college for 5 or 6 years now. So I am and I'm very grateful for, I'm in a great position to be able to educate our clients on ERISA principles. And then as necessary, I can help our own company with their compliance.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
That really helps out, I think, defining what we're going to be talking about. So I know that this is hard for me to talk about. I know that it was not passing the bar exam for me was 2018, and I haven't taken it since then. I know that for me, it's not in the right moment, especially because a lot of students like myself, we didn't have or still don't have the luxury to not work and sit down and take it and again, and other things can just come into your life and you may not be ready for it. I know that you took it recently, and I asked you, but will you be sitting for the bar exam again? What's your outlook for the future? I know that if you can just talk about your experience, what it's been so far.
Absolutely. So I did sit for the bar, and it was my second time sitting for the bar. So I graduated in May of 19. I took the bar in July of 19, and I did not pass. I missed. So I took it again in February, and I did not pass this time. And disappointment is probably the number one thing. It's disappointing. But for me, I had to frame it in the grand scheme of things. I had to frame it within my own desire and what I want to do with the rest of my career. The test in and of itself, and my very strong education thoughts about how the test is designed and how it's administered, especially in our state. They're really debating how it's done. And then I had to look at my life. You know, I told you I'm approaching my 40th birthday. I have had a career now for a long time. There's things that I want to do. I enjoy my job and I want to focus on my job. So at the present moment, I have decided not to take the bar again unless my state changes the way that they administer the bar. We had one of the lowest pass rates that I can recall this past time. And for me, it really, as an educator, like I said, I have some strong emotions on how the test is done, how it can affect individuals studying for, because it is a difficult thing to get through, and then getting through the test in and of itself. So for me, at this particular moment in time, I have decided to wait. And I'm weighing other things. I'm weighing, do I want to move? Do I not want to move? Things that I have put on hold to finish law school. I have a new business I've started. I really want to throw myself into my job full time without having to worry about working and school. So there was disappointment, but then I had to step back and take a look at how the test is, what it measures, what I know that I learned, what I know it's like to actually practice and be in law and do it every day, and just sort of say, look, I went through and I studied and I changed my study habits. I felt more comfortable with the content this time, and yet it still wasn't enough to pass because it's just what it is. But I am happy with my efforts and I'm happy with my own knowledge and where I'm at. But nevertheless, it's disappointing because you just want to check that last box and you'd be like, okay, it's over. But life does not end if you don't pass the bar. If you take it 2 or 3 times and you don't pass, it is the skill sets I learned, the people that I met, and my friends. That is where the value is for me. And that's what I am holding on to, because I know my worth, I know my education, and I know what I can do with the skills I've learned. And then maybe if maybe I'll take it again, maybe I won't. We'll see. Kind of like I said at the beginning, I'm going down this path, and maybe I'll take it, maybe I won't, maybe I'll be a painter or something. I don't know.
It's like, you just welcome to the club. That's kind of like where I've been. I too decided not to take it again, mainly for financial reasons and honestly being tired. I mean, like just like you, I worked a lot of jobs. My last semester was working full time, took full time classes. I was worn out. Temporary practice status was ended for me, family, and with the administration that we have right now, it was just really hard to deal with that. And then all these other life changes, being married, all these things happened. And I thought checking that box is going to determine what my future is going to be. Am I going to practice? Am I going to want to go to legislative law, which is like my dream, or work in higher ed, which is another dream of mine, But I ended up moving to a state I didn't expect, and that's okay. And I figured out, usually I'm my worst critic, which is often, but
we often are, and that's okay. That's part of the characteristic. I mean, that can make you a good lawyer. It can also make you very difficult on yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And I have, worked so many different positions, and thankfully have had a lot of opportunities. And then I have friends. I even talked to one that I met through Instagram, and others I have been in my life for a long time who went to law school with us, and they will say, just because you didn't pass the bar doesn't mean that you don't know what you learned, what you know, and the value that you have for yourself. And just the same way that you're saying it, they always joke that you're just an attorney without a license right now. That's it. Once so many of them would say, I have my license. It didn't make me feel like I have a superpower. It didn't make me feel like, it changed me as an individual, my knowledge. It's just this, requirement that they'll have for you to practice, but there are other things that you can do. And I'm glad that now you have Liv Balanced LLC. Yeah. For me, it's Lawtina LLC, and it's both our passions, and we're doing something that we love, and also helping other people live their best lives. So,
and you
talk to us through this. So.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. No, it's I think what you said earlier about your dream and what your dream is. And if your dream really is to be able to practice and go to court and petition, my is different. I did not go into law school to practice law. I went into law school to earn the skill sets to become better at business and help my companies, because that's what I enjoy doing. And so I've done what I set out to do. And I have done that. And so I have, I've been working through the stages of acceptance when you lose something, anger, denial, all of that stuff. And you can go in and out of those, and you got to give yourself a little bit of grace and a little bit of space in that. And I have to go back and say, look, what have you always really loved doing? And for me, it is fashion and color and painting and being outside and educating people about how they can take all we have is our bodies. We have our bodies and our minds. And it's our responsibility to do the best that we can with what we have. So let's treat it well. And so by sharing the content on my site and the things that I have planned, I'm hoping to say, look, I'm on this journey with you, because it's not easy. And though, I feel great now, 4 years ago, I was 40 pounds heavier. I was losing my hair. I was unhappy in an unhappy and toxic relationship. But I was in school, and I realized that I was learning things and I was enjoying it, and that was causing friction, and that friction led me to have to look at myself and be like, you're not happy. You got to make choices to be happy and healthy, and not allow yourself to be in a situation that's unhealthy for you or anybody else. So it's not, and you can read about my story on my website. It's just, you got to give yourself a little space and grace, all of us, especially in law, because our tendencies are to treat ourselves as though we were black letter law when we are not black letter law. Humans are not black letter law.
that should be like written somewhere and hang on my, like hung it up on my, on my.
You are not black letter law. You are a living, breathing, colorful, creative thing that can do what it wants to do when it needs to do it, if you allow it to. And that's something I'm telling myself as I'm talking to you.
Adjust where you need to adjust. So thank you so much, Liv.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Another question that we have, but I really appreciate you coming on, and we should do this again. I know that
of course.
Something so good to talk about health and balance, and I know that other people would like to hear it. As we progress through the COVID-19 situation, we'll invite you again to join us for another Cafecito time.
Be happy to. I'm happy to talk about maybe anything that has to do with mental health, and because a lot of us are feeling low, and so it's okay to feel lonely. It's okay to feel all kinds of weird things right now. So take care of yourselves, and make some extra efforts to just create and reach out to people. That's going to be really important for your health, and then precipitate into everything else. So thank you. I appreciate you having me on. I can't hear you either, but that's okay. You're welcome. Okay. All right. Bye-bye.